Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Pokemon FireRed. In the last parts, we went after every legendary we can get that's gotten through non-mystery gift-y talking to a guy at a Pokemart means. And now it's time to go finally end things off with our rematches against the Elite Four and the Champion. Big things to note is, at this point, it's more or less a numbers game. Yeah, there's going to be some new Pokemon along the way, and all of the Elite Four and Champions levels are boosted. I want to say the highest level Pokemon is like 74 or 5. But if you've gotten this far, as long as you have a good team composition with a good type layout on your moveset, you're going to do just fine. Welcome to the Pokemon League. I, Lorelei of the Elite Four, have returned. You know how it goes. No one can best me when it comes to icy Pokemon. Freezing moves are powerful. Your Pokemon will be at my mercy when they are frozen solid. Are you ready? Also, I'd like to note, I think the only members of the Elite Four that have different dialogue at this point are Lorelei and Lance. Blue will also have new dialogue, but otherwise, it's all the exact same stuff. Starting off, Lorelei's Dewgong, beyond its obvious level boost, does have an entirely different moveset. Surf, Ice Beam, Signal Beam, and Double Team in specific. Still has Thick Fat, so it takes half damage from fire and ice type moves. With that said, a good Thunder type move, and it's out of the way. Next up is her new Pokemon for this match. This is Piloswine, if I recall correctly. This is the evolution of Swinub, what we saw back at the Icefall Caverns, starting at level 33. Ice Ground type, meaning that it is weak to fighting, steel, fire, water, and grass. It's got some high HP and physical attack, but there's nothing too spectacular about it otherwise. I think it can learn some decent moves, but nothing to my interest. That Piloswine in specific has Oblivious for its ability, Earthquake, Blizzard, Double Edge, and Rock Slide. Next up, she's going to be throwing out her Cloyster. Still has Shell Armor, Rain Dance, Surf, Ice Beam, and Supersonic. They completely got rid of Hail from her Pokemon's movesets, which I find to be an odd choice, but I guess they're going more for outright damage like I tend to, so I guess I can compliment them for that. Also, that Signal Beam move that the Dewgong had, that's a bit of a weird one. That is a Bug-type move that deals just straight-up damage, but also has a 10% chance of confusing the target. So, more or less, something you should actually expect to see is that more or less every single member of an Elite Four team in this set, I think, has the ability to either flinch you or inflict some sort of status ailment. Like Lovely Kiss, which puts you to sleep, which sucks. The Jinx is more or less, I think, just seen a stat boost. Still has Oblivious for its ability, Psychic, Ice Beam, Lovely Kiss, and Attract. Elite Four matchups are something I have to consider how I'm going to want to handle next time I come back to Pokemon. Because the first time through, obviously, the boss fight should be shown at normal speed. But at this point, barring new Pokemon, it's a completely optional refight. It's not like this is required for the post-game storyline. The only reason I'm showing it at normal speed here is I'm kind of using this LP as the establishing point for how I'm going to handle this series from here on out. And I'm not sure how I want to handle these ones. I guess I'll leave that to you guys in the comments, whether or not you think, at least barring new Pokemon, the Elite Four should be sped up. The Champion refights I know will always be shown at normal speed, though. The best thing to bring into Lorelei's refight, though, is someone who knows some high-power electric moves. Thunder is my one of choice, despite its low accuracy, because I generally have good luck with it hitting, except for when I don't, in which case it usually misses like 3 times in a row. Plus... Alright, her Lapras has seen a bit of more or less a buff as well. Still has Water Absorb for its ability, Psychic, Thunder, Surf, and Ice Beam. This is a good example of how a Lapras can be a really good Pokemon if you use it right, because it can learn a lot of different types. It also was holding a different item. It was holding, I think, a HP restoration item back when we first fought it. Now here in Gen 3, it restores Paralysis. And also, I'm not going to be reading their dialogue for this because, again, it's, aside from, like, Lorelei and the starting of Lance's dialogue, it's all the exact same stuff. Like the first round against the Elite Four, I am going to be doing a minor jump cut between each one, which is just me using some full restores, elixir-type items on my party, just to make sure they're up to snuff for what's up and coming. Alright. Bruno's team is arguably the least change overall because he didn't outright replace any of his Pokemon. The one thing he did do, I think, is just level up his Onixes to the point where they would evolve. By that I mean they are now Steelixes. The first one has Sturdy for its ability, Earthquake, Rock Tomb, Iron Tail, and Crunch. Crunch is just a more powerful bite, more or less. Steelix itself is a Steel ground type that evolves when you trade Onix holding an Onix that's holding a Metal Coat item. The Steel ground type means that it is weak to fighting, ground, fire, and water, I believe. It's got some really high defenses, at least physically. But its special stats and speed leave a lot to be desired, and even its physical attack and HP aren't anything to really write home about. Mind you, that's the way they kind of balance things. If something has a super high stat, its opposites are usually really low, and everything else is just kind of in the middle. Out of the initial group of Steel types introduced in Gen 2, barring the reclassification of Magnemite and Magneton, it's probably the best one. I prefer Skarmory myself, but I could see people arguing Steelix being better. He also has two of them. The second one has Sturdy, Dragon Breath, Iron Tail, Earthquake, and Crunch, and I already forgot what the last Pokemon I faced was. I think it was the Hitmonchan. If it was, it still has Keen Eye, Sky Uppercut, Mach Punch, Rock Slide, and Counter. Bruno is oddly the least changed overall, and it goes into what I brought up the first time I went through this Elite Four. He's oddly the one that gets the least amount of love throughout the series out of the original Elite Four. At least in terms of peripheral material. Obviously, I think he appeared in Gen 2, but beyond that, like, Lorelei got some love and extra content stuff. Lance is pretty obvious what happens to him. Agatha gets some peripheral stuff. And she was a focus of, I think, a now-canceled fan effort at a Gen 0 starring her and Professor Oak. At least, I think that project got canned. You know what? I'm curious. Also, the Hitmonlee had Limber for its ability, still Mega Kick, Foresight, Earthquake, and Rock Slide. The Machamp is now holding a Person Berry, Brick Break, Cross Chop, Earthquake, and Rock Slide. And something I actually forgot to mention about Cross Chop is that it is a priority 1 move, so it'll likely go out first unless you use one yourself. So be careful with that. And now we're on to Agatha, who, looking back, is a lot easier with my current team setup than it was than she was when I was a kid. Just because her Gengars used to cause me a lot of problems. Namely with their Hypnosis, Dream Eater combo. Not so much now. Mind you, the Alakazam could have something to do with that. Alright, starting off, she's going to once again throw out one of her Gengars, Levitate for its ability, Confuse Ray, Shadow Punch, Hypnosis, and Psychic. She has completely removed, I think, every instance of a sleep damage ability, like Dream Eater or Snore, from her party. So she is definitely a lot more aggressive this time around. Next up, she's going to send out her Crobat. She evolved her Golbat from last time. Crobat is a poison flying type that evolves when Golbat has a high friendship value. Being poison flying, that means it is weak to Rock, Electric, Psychic, and Ice. This thing is extraordinarily fast, and it's got some decent stats beyond that. Nothing like obscene, but it balances its stats well enough that I think it's honestly a really good Pokemon. It's just, I don't think any Pokemon who have Gen 2 onwards evolutions can evolve until after you've beaten the Elite Four. Like, you can't evolve a Golbat into a Crobat until after you've beaten the Elite Four the first time. And if you could, I could recommend one for your team, but not so much just because, yeah, you'd have to get this one so late. It's that weird thing with me in particular where once I beat a Pokemon game, I kind of stick with the team I have with that file into post-game. And because I see some people with Gen 2 in specific, like trading up an entirely different team for when they get to the Kanto portion of that game. I just can't do that because I grow close to my team in a way. Either way, she just sent out her Arbok. Intimidate, Double Team, Sludge Bomb, Earthquake, and Giga Drain. And now she sent out her second Gengar, still has Levitate, has a Chesto Berry, Shadow Ball, Sludge Bomb, Psychic, and Thunderbolt. She goes... Really, every Elite Four member has become much more aggressive, and they're both more and less scary due to that. But for her final Pokemon, she's sending out yet another new one, Miss Drevis. This one has Levitate for its ability, Shadow Ball, Thunderbolt, Psychic, and Attract. Attract is once again probably the most dangerous thing here. And Miss Drevis itself is a Ghost type introduced in Gen 2. Being pure Ghost type, that means it is weak to Ghost and Dark, but completely immune to normal fighting, and thanks to levitate, ground type attacks. It's got some okay special stats and speed. Its physical stats and HP, not so much. I forget if it could evolve in Gen 2. I think Miss Magius was introduced in Gen 4. And if you can do that using a Dusk Stone, I would recommend it, because Miss Magius is alright. But Miss Drevis, think it's useful in that one of the console games. I forget if it was Coliseum or XD. Just because you could do a lot more with it in that game, given the relatively small amount of Pokemon you can catch. Plus, according to a certain LP, there's a very large chance that it just won't get affected by any moves, because so many things know normal type moves in that game. Ah, so you've returned, Kyle. I lead the Elite Four. This is now the exact same dialogue as before. Lance takes a bit of a note out of his Gen 2 incarnation and his sister from Generation 2. More on that when we see his new Pokemon. Starting off though, he's still going to throw out his Gyarados. Intimidate for its ability, Hyper Beam, Dragon Dance, Earthquake, and Thunder Wave. Although I'm now realizing, more so here than in the original match, his typing comes across less as Dragon and more as Flying. Because in this fight, only one of his Pokemon doesn't have the Flying subtype. In his original fight, two of them didn't, because he had 2 Dragonairs. Not so much now, though. If I'm recalling correctly, next up he's going to send out one of his Dragonite? No, he's sending out his Aerodactyl. Rocket for its ability, Hyper Beam, Ancient Power, Aerial Ace, and Earthquake. Ice-type moves and Water-type moves are still going to be your best bet there. And while we take care of this Aerodactyl, something I should actually note is, just for my behind-the-scenes notes-checking portion of this LP, to make sure I fought every trainer I could have along the way and what Pokemon I've seen and which ones I haven't, I have had a Word document going this entire LP, where like I will put a number down, then that number of Pokemon, then that number of trainer, so on and so forth. And because of that, I know for a fact I run into 172 different Pokemon just from trainer battles in this LP, and I encounter exactly 451 trainers. Well, trainer battles, more accurately. Technically speaking, I do more of that due to my grinding, but in terms of unique fights, that's a good amount. Either way, now we're on to his first Dragonite, because he evolved his Dragonair. I believe this is supposed to be one of the Dragonairs here, even. Inner Focus, so it can't flinch. Hyper Beam, Earthquake, Dragon Claw, and Flamethrower. Something I could have done, but I didn't for this part, was go and grind out the game corner to get, like, the Ice Beam TM, a Charcoal thing to boost my fire moves, so on and so forth, because honestly, at this point, just because of where we are in the LP, I don't think it's quite worth it. Actually, no, this one used Ice Beam. This is the level 72 one, I just realized. No, this one has Hyper Beam, Outrage, Thunderbolt, and Ice Beam. Which makes it inherently more dangerous than the other one because it has the thing that it's weak against. Dragonite always felt a bit weird, though. And I think there was even a developer thing that went into this a little bit. Apparently, at one point in development, Dragonite's design was closer to what Charizard was going to be, but they just completely shifted direction with that. I think that was something I read at some point. Honestly, there's so many rumors and news with Pokemon, given it's quite potentially the largest franchise in the world, that it's kind of hard to separate the rumors from the reality in your brain. His new Pokemon is a Kingdra. Swift Swim for its ability, Hyper Beam, Dragon Dance, Surf, and Ice Beam. Swift Swim, by the way, boosts the speed stat during rain. And as for Kingdra itself, it is a Water Dragon type, meaning it is just weak to Dragon and Fairy, meaning it's only weak to Dragon here in Gen 3. And it's got some okay stats. I think, barring its HP and speed, its stats are all identical, like high 90s. It's good. And given how that it only has the one weakness, it's arguably the best Dragon type in Gen 2 and 3. Well, more so Gen 2 than Gen 3 now I think about it, because Gen 2, Gen 3 rather, Salamence exists, and oh boy, that's an Uber of all Ubers. A good Dragon type attack though, especially from a Pokemon 6 levels higher than it, and you should go down really easily. That's arguably the hardest Pokemon you'll encounter throughout this entire Elite Four match, honestly. And this is the Dragonite I accidentally went over earlier, just not looking at the level. Inner Focus, Hyper Beam, Earthquake, Dragon Claw, and Flamethrower. My Dragonite is better than your Dragonite, ha ha ha. And at least he's not at the point where he's cheating his Dragonites yet, because in Gen 2, I know everyone memes about this, but he really has like level 50 Dragonites, and how? How? But that's the Elite Four rematches over and done with, which means now it's time for us to go after Blue again. This is a problem I had with Pokemon games, though, until Gen 7, really, is when you go through the Elite Four again, for some reason the person you fought the first time is back there as a champion. I think some of the games try to write off the excuse of they're taking care of your spot while you're away adventuring, but it always felt a bit weird. Like, what, did you beat me off screen and beat the Elite Four again? I mean, I guess that goes into some of the little offside lore things where, technically speaking, there's off and on gym trainers. Sometimes they get ranked, sometimes they don't. It's complicated. I like the title defense in Gen 7 and 8 a lot more than this, though. Blue's final battle here, though. He's seen a boost in team levels and variety. Now he has a Heracross, bug fighting type, Mega Horn, Swarm for its ability, Counter, Rock Tomb, and Earthquake. A good flying type move will take this out of your way. No problem, though. The Swarm ability, I forget what that does off the top of my head. I think that increases the power of bug-type moves under certain circumstances, maybe like relevant to the HP ratio or something. I can't quite recall off the top of my head. Next up, he's throwing out his Blastoise, which is now level 75. Even grinding up as much as I did, I'm technically underleveled. Torn for its ability, as usual, Citrus Berry being held, Rain Dance, Hydro Pump, Ice Beam, and Earthquake. In fact, one thing I will say about this blue fight, be careful with any Pokemon type you throw out that would be strong against the Pokemon in question, because he probably has a move that's strong against that type. Which is really smart design. But I didn't think they nailed this completely right until Gen 8, where even on the first round, the champion has that kind of setup going, and it's scary. Although now I think about it, I think Cynthia had something like that along those lines, and it was pretty scary too. Next up, he's throwing out our last new Pokemon for this LP, Tyranitar. Rock Dark type evolves from the evolution of Larvitar at 55. Weak to Fighting, Ground, Bug, Steel, Water, Grass, and Fairy. It's 4 times weak to Fighting there in specific. This is the Gen 2 Dragonite, more or less. High HP, high physical attack and defense. Pretty high special attack and defense. It's just slow to compensate. If it gets a hit off on you, it's gonna suck. It also has the Sandstorm ability, which kicks up a Sandstorm the moment you throw it out. Has Crunch, Thunderbolt, Earthquake, and Aerial Ace, but a good Break, or any other fighting type move that's maybe above 70 power to its face, and it's out of your way. Next out, he's throwing out his Arcanine once again. Overheat, Extreme Speed, Iron Tail, and Aerial Ace. Still has Intimidate for its ability. A good water type move, and it will be out of our way, hopefully. I remember, compared to the Elite Four, some of his Pokemon decide to stay around an extra turn because my strength isn't as high as it should be. Or my strengths, rather. But I recorded this like 3 days ago and I actually can't recall. Sometimes my memory with the footage I record is a bit spotty, despite me even editing it not even an hour earlier. The good news about that Tyranitar, though, is that if you take it out within like 1 turn, the Sandstorm still will stay around for an extra 2 or 3, so you can get some extra hits off on any of your rivals' Pokemon here without much of a worry. Alright, his Executor is more or less seen, I believe, just a level boost. Still has Chlorophyll for its ability, so if Sunny Day is kicked up, its speed will double. Sleep Powder, Light Screen, Giga Drain, and Psychic. Anything you throw out here will honestly be good. I'm throwing Scott back out, because you may have seen he no longer has Horn Drill. Around like level 65 or so, I want to say, he learned Mega Horn, which is one of the only really useful bug moves outside prior to Gen 4 or 5. Because it's just super powerful. Heracross learns this naturally as well. It's one of the reasons I love Heracross. Tasty damage. And now we're on to his last Pokemon, his Alakazam once again. Synchronized for its ability still, Psychic, Reflect, Calm Mind, and Shadow Ball. If you've beaten the rest of his team, and you still have like 4 Pokemon up, honestly, this fight shouldn't be too bad. For me, I'm kind of, admittedly, one of the few types I'm not too good about in this LP is Psychic, because I think I only have 2 moves on my team right now that are good against it. between Bite here on Chris, and I think Mega Horn would be useful here. But I just wanted to end off with the Vaporeon because it's my favorite damn Pokemon, because look at its high HP stat. It's almost at 300. And even then, max potions still aren't worth using, because full restorers will do more and are more worth your money anyway. Oh no! Well, you know what? I can take an extra turn or two, just reviving it, throwing it back out, probably dealing with the full restore Blue is about to use. You know what? It's worth it. Gotta do it for the vine, man. And that is a sentence that probably has not been said in an unironic statement since... When did Vine close down? I can't recall off the top of my head now. The rematches are tougher, but if you prepare yourself right, even without over-leveling, you're probably going to be just fine. I've seen people take this on as low as like level 64. And honestly, that's not a bad level to take it out on, because if you know your type setups well, you do the right hold items, you can hold yourself well just fine. It's another problem with Pokemon Endgames, really, where the type matchups never change once you get them down in your head, so just learning the types and knowing what to use when against what type of defenses. It's one thing about Pokemon that's hard for me to... It's one of the reasons it's harder for me to go back to it compared to other RPGs I play. Because other RPGs, yeah, they might see repaints of of monsters from the beginning of the game later on, like the little trickster in the final dungeon of Final Fantasy IV immediately comes to mind. But the strategies are so changed up that you can't rely on prior knowledge for it. Pokemon, a lot of prior knowledge comes in handy really, very often, rather. So, it's one of the reasons that I find Pokemon to be just such an easy series, and I don't exactly see why people say the older games were harder. They were often harder just due to bad design, not because they were actually hard. But that's it! Blue's defeated again, and the ending doesn't change at all. I'm still leaving it in so you can see my Hall of Fame, my hours and all that, but Oak's just gonna come up going, "Ah, you disappointed me, grandson. Your friend didn't, though, because he's the silent protagonist." One thing I can recommend, though, if you're trying to complete the Pokedex here in Gen 3 or Gen 1, if you want to more easily get the Porygon at the game corner, just put the Amulet coin on one of your Pokemon and throw them out against the Elite Four in Blue rematches, because you get over like 10,000 per fight if you do that, and that's really good. A similar thing with those two cool trainers I grinded used to grind over at Sevalt Canyon. It's just going to be overall better for your money, meaning that, hey, that Pokedex completion is getting all the faster. And also, something I didn't quite get to mention because I was silent for this portion last time. One of my favorite themes in Pokemon history is actually the Hall of Fame theme. And it's sad because it's such a short song that doesn't get much love. Usually it's only played during this portion of the game until Gen 8, where it appeared in a bit of a different place, but I was super glad to hear it used like that. But here's my team. We've come a long way since that level 5 Charmander joined us back in part 1. My little FireRed family. I fight with and for my friends, to quote a certain Fire Emblem character. Also, my actual playtime was probably not 52 hours. A lot of that is me holding down the fast forward button, which for me is mapped to my controller's L2 button while I'm doing level grinding. The actual gameplay time is probably closer to 30 to 32, I'd estimate, maybe. I guess it depends on how fast the speed up function goes. But once and for all, that's Pokemon FireRed. I am very glad I made this my 200th LP, because first off, it's just nice to go back to this and remember how things were when I was a kid. And it's just nice to go back to this series after so long, because despite me not playing Pokemon or going back to play a Pokemon game, at least in the main games, too often, it's still a great series. Barring the technical hiccups of Gen 1 and 2, I don't think there's an actively bad game between Gen 3 and Gen 8. There's just ones I don't like too much. I'm looking at you, Sinnoh, so goddamn much. And because of that, I really respect the hell out of people who only do Pokemon content on their streams or their YouTube or whatever, because That just goes to show how much people love this series. And I love it too. I just want to do other things with my time beyond Pokemon. To be able to focus on one type of content like that for so long, it really goes into just... How do I word this? I have a hard time investing that much time in something over and over again, I guess is the way I want to put it. Because, like, there's the speedrun categories, there's all the various locks, like Nuzlocke, Solocke, so on and so forth. Which, personally speaking, I may have even gotten some comments about this at this point. I actually don't know, because this is all being recorded. This is being recorded on February 28th, by the way. I have a hard time doing any of the various locks, because I just don't like doing challenge runs that much, unless it's for, like, a game I really like, and I want to do it for the Platinum Trophy. And even then, there's not many of those I've done. Like, the most I've done is maybe the checkpointless New Game Plus run of Shovel Knight, maybe, going for the Shovel of Hope Platinum Trophy. I feel like if I did something like that for too many games in a row, I would just get burnout, which is something I think some Pokemon fans get anyway, because they'll, like, start a Pokemon game up and then get 4 gyms in and just stop, because it's such a big series. I think people might at times play it too much. Not that there's a problem with that, because, like, I play a lot of Mega Man, but those are short games that are easy to digest and play within a day. Unless you're a speedrunner, I'm looking at you, Worcester, in particular, playing a Pokemon game in one day is hard, and you're probably just gonna hold down the speedrun key, not the speedrun key, the speed up key anyway, if you're playing on emulator at least. Either way, with my little thoughts like that out of the way, once again, thank you guys for watching, for those of you who stuck around for the postgame at least. And thank you for sticking around for 200 LPs for those of you who have been around a while. I plan to do many, many more, but it's just, in a way, it's weird to see what I've done the past 9 years almost, and just look at that number and go, oh! That's a lot of projects! That means I've put easily well into over 1,000 hours into this channel over the years, which is kind of weird to think about, now that I think about it, because that's probably as much time as I put into my schoolwork through college? Or maybe not even that much, maybe even more than I put into my schoolwork throughout college and high school. Huh. With that said, as I mentioned at the end of the main LP, the next mainline Pokemon game we're going to be doing is Heart Gold Soul Silver. Partially for nostalgia again, but it's also because I really don't want to deal with anything prior to Gen 4 mechanically again. Because honestly, with this LP done, I'm probably only ever going to go back to this game once or twice more in my lifetime when I'm feeling that very specific, I want to go back to where I started in Pokemon itch again, which isn't the most likely thing. Thank you guys for watching, have a great night, take care, and I'll see you guys next Let's Play, whatever that may be. See you guys then.